Manufacturing Center, and I'd like to welcome you to our wind energy supply chain manufacturing webinar this morning. We thought this would be a good opportunity to bring folks up to date what's happening with the wind energy market. The PTC is now in place for another year, and the wind industry, the AWEA, just had finished its annual conference a couple of weeks ago, so we've got a couple of speakers here who can talk to our audience about the state of the market and manufacturing opportunities. We're also coming to you this morning from Northern Power Systems in Vermont and in Barre, Vermont. Northern Power Systems is the leading U.S. manufacturer of community wind turbines, and we will also shortly be speaking, hearing from the Global Supply Chain Vice President at the corporation. For those of you who are here for the first time, Clean Energy Manufacturing Center is a nonprofit organization that, in a partnership with MEP, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, to provide services to manufacturers who want to enter clean energy markets, and we're really focused on building domestic manufacturing capacity in renewable energy and clean energy markets. As part of the services that we offer, we have a monthly webinar schedule that we partner with MEP and also with the Department of Energy. And I think hopefully some of you have been on these, and we've got the schedule up here through September of this year, and we will be updating it in the next couple of months for the October timeframe. Our next webinar, just as a preview, is on natural gas. It's an issue that has really been in the news for the last several months, and we're going to be talking about manufacturing opportunities in this industry. We believe there are prospects for small manufacturers in building stronger supply chains in the U.S., in addition to having cheaper energy. Our agenda today includes 3 terrific speakers, all of whom are knowledgeable in all aspects of the industry. So I think we will be talking about some of the policy stuff, the utility wind market, as well as the community wind market. John Hensley is a policy analyst at AWEA. Ed Weston, the director of GLWN, is a international advisory firm that has worked with most of the major corporations in the industry. And then an OEM perspective from Dave Buley, the VP of Global Supply Chain here at Northern Power Systems. And then we'll have the opportunity for a question and answer period. Following, we've got more details on bios for the speakers, which are here for the record. If folks would like more information on these folks, you can access this program after it's over. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to John. John?
Hello there, everyone. Hello. Let me just pull up my slides and I'll get started. All right, hopefully everybody can see my screen correctly. As Jacques said, my name is John Hensley. I'm a policy analyst here at the American Wind Energy Association, where I'm primarily tasked with looking at wind manufacturing and the supply chain for AWEA. Also in charge of our wind manufacturing database. So I look at these issues quite often, and hopefully within the next 15 minutes or so, the time that I have, I can provide a brief update on what the U.S. wind industry market looks like, and then also to highlight some of the opportunities that I see in the wind manufacturing sphere. And so I'd like to thank Clean Energy Manufacturing Center and the BlueGreen Alliance for inviting me to participate and for hosting these webinars. I think it's a great way for people to become informed on the opportunities that are out there. And just a quick plug on one of our products that AWEA offers. We have a U.S. wind industry annual market report that we put out every year. The vast majority of the stuff that I'll present on is from that market report, and you'll see a couple of call-outs at various points in the presentation pointing you to some more detailed information on some of the slides that exist within our market report. And at the end, there's a link to the market report, and if anybody has any questions or wants to inquire more about what's in there, feel free to contact me, and I can help you out with that. So I don't want to dig into too much of the details of what AWEA is. Most people know us. We're an association of about 1,200 members. The vast majority of those members are actually wind turbine component manufacturers. So wind manufacturing is sort of at the heart of our industry, and we're always pushing new policies and incentives for it to help grow your guys' business. So just a brief overlook at what the U.S. wind industry market looks like. As you can see here, we've experienced tremendous exponential growth over the last decade. Last year being the best year that we've ever had, we installed more than 13 gigawatts of new wind installations, bringing the cumulative total to over 60 gigawatts. This represents about 5.6% of the total U.S. installed electric generation capacity and provides enough electricity to supply about 15 million American households. So pretty substantial installation base. Now, historically, over the past 5 years, we've done a good job of capturing significant market share, especially compared to technologies like natural gas, which we've seen really low prices. You can see here we're capturing about 36% of the market over the last 5 years. And in fact, in 2012, we're the #1 new generation source capturing 42% of the market and propelling renewables to above 50% of the market. In addition to that, with such a large installation base, wind has driven significant investments, new investments. Last year alone, the industry invested over $25 billion across the U.S. Here's just a quick state breakdown of where these installations are. Obviously, Texas, California, Iowa are our biggest states with more than 5 gigawatts of wind. Texas down there, sort of the anomaly with more than 12. We're also seeing states like Washington, Oregon, and the Pacific Northwest, states like Illinois and Indiana in sort of the breadbasket area, and then New York and Pennsylvania in the Northeast, really contributing significantly to the installed base. We've also seen the emergence of typically non-traditional wind states growing their wind businesses. Think of states like Alaska, Hawaii, Michigan, New Hampshire, Ohio, Rhode Island, and Vermont. These states have all doubled their installations, wind installations from 2011. And, as turbine manufacturers develop, taller machines with larger rotor diameter, project developers are capable of accessing more marginal wind resources. Sort of Ohio stands out as a case in point where, these taller towers are able to provide an installation base really close to the demand centers. We've also seen the emergence of new states into the scene. Nevada and Puerto Rico installed their first projects last year. So we expect more of that to be happening as the technology improves moving forward. Sort of on a regional breakdown, the Midwest has been the powerhouse area. Great wind resources have contributed to the growth of the wind industry in this region. And if you look at wind's market capture rate compared to other energy generation sources in the Midwest, but primarily the upper Midwest, so the Dakotas, Minnesota, and Iowa, wind has captured more than 90% of the market share over the past 3 or 4 years. So we're seeing wind do very well and install very competitively in these areas. We've also seen the emergence of some new areas that haven't played as big of a role in the past. Think of the Plain States. Kansas and Oklahoma brought significant amount of new installations online last year. And in the Northwest with Washington and Oregon pushing to meet the renewable portfolio standards and bringing a lot of new wind online. All right, now that we've sort of done the broad overview of what the industry looks like and what the install rate is, let's drill down more specifically to wind manufacturing. Probably most of you have seen this map. This is what we call our red dot map, and it shows all the locations of wind-related manufacturing facilities across the United States. Currently, there are more than 550 wind manufacturing facilities across 44 states. These facilities employ more than 25,000 personnel, so contributing significantly to economic activity and development in these regions. And it's important to sort of pay attention to the distribution of these facilities. You know, typically they're concentrated in areas that are not typically associated with wind development. Think of the Great Lakes states, upper New England states, and in particular the Southeast. Southeast, aside from Tennessee, has no wind installations, yet there are 105 different manufacturing facilities producing a product for the wind industry in that area. So it shows that wind can be more flexible than just project development. Manufacturing also can contribute very significantly. Staying on this slide for a little bit, I want to talk about some of the major wind-related manufacturing facilities, so the guys making blades, towers, and cell assemblies. Currently, there are 37 different major component facilities across the U.S., 13 blade facilities, 12 tower facilities, and 12 turbine assembly facilities. When it comes to turbine assembly, you think of facilities like Alstom, Acciona, Gamesa, GE, Aeronautica, Northern Power Systems, Nordex, Siemens, the Wind, and Vestas. These are, you know, the primary manufacturers of turbines that are installed in the U.S. In fact, in 2012, 92% of all turbines that were installed in the U.S. came from turbine OEMs that actually had facilities here in the U.S. So growing the domestic content significantly here in the wind industry. In terms of production, the U.S. manufacturing industry does have a significant amount of production capability. Currently, nacelle assembly shops are able to produce about 13 gigawatts annually. Blade facilities are able to put out about 13,000 blades per year, and tower facilities can roll approximately 4,000 towers per year. So pretty significant production capabilities that exist. So I do want to point out that on the tower side of things, we did see some significant market consolidation last year. We saw 2 tower facilities and 2 nacelle assembly facilities come offline, and a further 6 tower facilities exit the wind industry. So there could be the potential for bottlenecks when it comes to towers, especially given the implementation of a tariff on Chinese and Vietnamese towers. But when it comes to other components, pretty good production capacity moving forward, enough to meet expected demand, I think. Now, in keeping with the theme of the webinar, I sort of want to highlight some of the opportunities for manufacturers to enter the wind industry. And this is a nice little cutout of a wind turbine showing the various components that help to make the machine run. So this gives you a little idea of if you're involved in any manufacturing of products related to this, generators, gearboxes, rotor clips, bearings, brackets, you could have a role to play in the wind industry. And this slide gives a nice breakdown of sort of the product categories that summarize all the components that go into the machine. In a typical wind turbine, there are 8,000 different components. So, you know, typically people think of, well, I don't make a tower, I don't make a blade, and I'm not assembling any turbine, so maybe I don't have a role to play. You might want to take another look. There's significant opportunity in here. Even if you're doing things from lighting to lubrication, bearings, brakes, you could have a role to play within the industry. And here's a nice little breakdown of the components by weight across the wind turbine. You can see that a tower comprises the heaviest amount of a wind turbine and also drives a significant amount of steel usage in the machine. But you can also see glass, copper, concrete, especially as tower manufacturers are looking towards concrete towers. You see some other materials starting to be used. All right, now I want to shift the focus to look more at turbine manufacturing market share and explore some of the trends that we've been witnessing in turbine technology over the past decade. So within the United States, over 59 different wind turbine manufacturers have installed a machine in the U.S. Now, while there are a lot of turbine manufacturers, the top 5 OEMs tend to dominate the market. You can see here that GE captured 40% of the market in 2012. In the same year, GE, Siemens, Vestas, and Repower, the top 5 OEMs in terms of market share, captured over 87% of the market. So, some significant concentration in the top OEMs, but I do think that there is still some opportunities for other turbine manufacturers. You can see here, here's a historical trend of who's been installing machines, and that other bar in 2012 has grown significantly as various turbine manufacturers have entered the market and began supplying the industry. And so, one thing that's important to note is that this represents a significant increase historically. Just 6 years ago, there were only 6 wind turbine manufacturers operating and installing machines in the U.S. This has increased to 17 in 2012, so we've witnessed some pretty significant growth. And alongside this growth, we've seen the domestic content of wind turbines increase substantially. In 2005 and prior, wind turbines consisted of about 25% domestic content. In 2012, this had risen to 67%. So a pretty stable policy environment invited turbine OEMs to establish a manufacturing center in the U.S. and also entice their entire supply chain to relocate as well. And so we're seeing the increase in domestic content, which has helped to bring down the cost of these machines as well. All right, now let's look at some of the trends in turbine technology. You can see here the average megawatt rating nameplate capacity of these machines has increased pretty substantially over the years. 2002, a decade ago, we were averaging below 1 megawatt. Now we're looking at 1.95 megawatts in the U.S. And while these turbines have become larger, they've also become more productive and reliable. Newer wind turbine models have generation availability rates above 98%. And the implementation of taller towers, larger rotor diameters, and better sighting technology have enabled most wind turbines to achieve capacity factors ranging from 30 to 40%. So a significant increase in the production of these machines as well. And here's a nice breakdown of the machines that were installed in 2012. You can see that the 1.5, 1.6 megawatt platform was the most popular, primarily driven by GE. This is their powerhouse platform that they've been capturing a lot of market share with. But we're also seeing the emergence of usage of the 2 and 2.3 megawatt machines, as well as some other machines. You can also see we installed a 3.6 and quite a few 3 megawatt machines. And so to wrap up, I kind of want to hit on some of the benefits that the wind manufacturing industry and the wind industry in general promotes. You can see here that the wind industry is a significant source of quality, high-paying jobs across the United States. As I mentioned previously, wind manufacturing comprises about 25,000 jobs for Americans. So, we're a significant force in the U.S. economy. $25 billion investment in 2012, in addition to more than 80,000 jobs that's provided by the industry. And then finally, sort of want to leave you with a nice little chart here that also highlights some of the opportunities in the wind industry. You can see this is a ranking of the top 20 states in various categories: installed turbine or installed wind capacity, installed megawatts per capita, installed megawatts per square mile, and wind potential. So you can sort of see here where the powerhouse states are and where the market opportunity going forward lies. And then finally, to wrap up, just want to put in a quick plug for some of the AWEA events. These are a great opportunity for folks looking to join the industry or people already in the industry to meet with other companies in the industry, find new clients, promote their product, learn more about the policy environment and what's been happening within the U.S. wind industry. So definitely encourage you to attend those conferences. I know a lot of folks go to Wind Power every year, and it's a great conference. provides a lot of connections, but some of these smaller conferences are a little bit more intimate and can really promote those nice networking opportunities. And then finally, like I said, most of this information comes from our annual market report. I encourage you, if you're looking for more information, to log on to our website, check out the annual market report, and if you do have any questions, please shoot them my way. Happy to help. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ed Weston, the Director of GLWN, one of our partners. And Ed is just going to be talking about his insights into the latest trends in the industry. He spent a few days meeting with executives at the Wind Power in Chicago, and I'll turn it over to Ed.
Well, thanks, Jacques, and thanks to CEMC for inviting us to participate today. I'm the Director of GLWN. In short, we're an organization of engineers and manufacturing managers who've been developing supply chains, connecting sellers with buyers in the wind industry for the past 6 years. Our goal is to grow America's manufacturing footprint in the wind industry, and we measure that by increasing domestic content of our turbines. For the manufacturers in the audience, to help you focus business development, I'll be talking about different markets within the wind industry for manufacturers, original equipment, plus a couple other emerging ones of special interest for new business development, and of interest to economic development professionals also wanting to promote regional investment. And some of these are highlights from AWEA Wind Power Supply Chain Conference I chaired in Chicago just a couple weeks ago. Well, John talked about the U.S. in 2013. We installed 13 gigs, which was a record. For manufacturers in the original equipment business, that's a really good news, bad news story. The good news is how busy they were and how OEMs and suppliers and constructions and logistics teams rallied to, frankly, install record numbers of turbines. And if I understand it, there was 8 gigs in the fourth quarter alone in order to meet the 12/31 tax credit deadline, which they did. The bad news is that all that hustle has created for suppliers something of a New Year's hangover. By pulling all those orders forward, we've had a lapse of business caused by the temporary expiration of the PTC, which has caused forecasts for 2013 installations to fall a lot, and I'm seeing figures in excess of 80% for 2013. So if you're in the OEM business for components, what's the outlook? Well, what you already know is that the last quarter of 2012 and the first quarter of 2013 are pretty dead. But the new PTC is enlivening the market, and just walking around Wind Power, I can tell you that developers and OEMs are very active and pretty excited about the prospects for the second half of this year and certainly the first half of next. What I'd like to cover next is a developing market in which U.S. manufacturers have with the ability to engineer new products, can have a special advantage. And that market is the aftermarket for wind turbines. Stepping back among the world's nations, the U.S. is second only to China in the number of wind turbines that are installed and generating power. We're talking in excess of 40,000 turbines on the U.S. right now that are spinning, and these turbines have a design life in excess of 20 years. And the majority of these are off warranty. So if you put yourself in the chair of a fleet manager, they've got a lot of maintenance to do for a lot of time to keep these things running. Time is money, so they need to keep them operating, and that is a challenge. And here's a dilemma these folks face. Once the warranty expires, the owners find themselves having to wonder what is the most effective way to maintain these turbines. And that whole topic, the business of wind farm operations and maintenance, the best practices for minimum downtime, we could take the rest of the afternoon for that. But for manufacturers, what's clear now is that whether it's independent service providers or owner-operators, these folks are looking for new sources of aftermarket parts. And why would that be? Well, in some ways, the wind industry is like the auto industry. If you go to the Cadillac garage to get parts for your car, they're usually in stock and they'll work, but you will be paying Cadillac prices. In wind, that's in part because a lot of these components still come from Europe, and they're getting a markup, sometimes as much as 3x. It's what the reports I'm hearing. So the point is that there's an opening door right now for U.S. manufacturers to provide new sources of parts, and this is often done through reverse engineering, the parts that could be made available at a lower cost or at a lower failure rate to keep those turbines operating longer. There's a real business opportunity for manufacturers who can help to lower the cost of wind power through new component design. Now, how big is this market? One study from IHS Emerging Energy Resources estimates an O&M cost in America for U.S. wind farms will be between $3 and $4 billion through 2015, and more beyond that. And certainly a significant amount of that falls into replacement components. So what are the criteria for getting into this market? And here's a short checklist. New designs need to meet specifications. You need to at least cover or enhance the performance. And then folks are looking for cost reduction opportunities to drive a change. Either that comes through a lower price or indirectly by providing them something more, maybe a longer life or easier to maintain. And lastly, any new component of the turbine has to be approved by the owners. And many of the companies right now are working on procedures to give them a formal system and a capacity to evaluate new U.S. products as replacements. That has been something taking time to come, but as I talk to owner-operators, that is where they're heading right now. They're systematizing this to provide a faster qualification period. Here's a list of some breakthroughs from U.S. firms in the turbine aftermarket. You'll notice replacement parts, slip rings and brake pads, brushes, etc. Formerly manufactured in these countries, but now produced, qualified, and sold here. And there's also a market in refurbishings, rebuilds, refurbishments, again, for major components that don't need to be replaced as much as rebuilt. I guess in talking about the aftermarket, the thing that's easy to miss is that the large-scale wind industry is relatively young here in this country. Unlike the auto industry that's been around forever and you can buy aftermarket parts on many corners, not so in wind. It's an exciting, we see this as an exciting, almost a ground floor opportunity for American companies in what's going to be a growing aftermarket market. If you'd like more information on how to engage or who to engage, please give us a call. There's another market looming as well that will have special interest to U.S. manufacturers. Those of you in the audience, particularly if your firms are near coasts and you have large-scale capability. And that is offshore wind, and it is coming to America. And here's why I say this. You've heard the news. It's a fact. Cape Wind will be America's first offshore wind farm. We're talking about 130 offshore turbines generating 420 megawatts of clean power. So the off Horseshoe Shoal, Nantucket Sound. Permitting was completed in 2010. Construction and operations plan approved in 2011. The PPAs are now in place. And construction begins late this year, with turbines and foundations going into the water afterwards, and the project will be partly commissioned in 2015 and fully commissioned in 2016. And the U.S. Department of Energy is right behind with more. This past December, it selected 7 projects as finalists for funding for demonstration projects and on the left you can see the list. It's an interesting list. It's geographically spread. There's 4 on the East Coast, there's 1 project in the Gulf, 1 off Oregon, and 1 in the Great Lakes. DOE is also spreading the technology around. 2 of these projects are for turbines on floating platforms. 1 is in fresh water that freezes every year, and a variety of foundations. Okay. Three of these projects will be selected for federal funding in May of 2014, and each of those winners will receive up to $47 million in grants to drive completion as a demonstration project, and also an impetus for a follow-on commercial scale wind farm nearby, similar to what Cape Wind is doing. So when these happen, what kinds of supply chain requirements are needed? And I'll leave out the turbines. Let's just talk about the local requirements. Foundations. Offshore farms have different kinds of foundations based on the geology of the seafloor. And if you look at the dock worker down at the bottom, that gives you an idea of the scale of these units for offshore foundations. I am frozen. How do I get this to move? Well, my slides are frozen, so let me just go on. I'll tell you what you could see if you could see the next picture. I'd show you a picture of an onshore monopile, which is basically a 300 to 700 tons of steel plate. It's a big welded, fabricated steel tube that's used individually for shallow water installations. And the second type is gravity foundations, and these are similar to what's used for onshore large concrete structures with for fabricators, welded steel rings and a skeletal structure and forms, steel forms that go and rest on the ocean or the sea floor. And in this picture you see tripiles. And in fact, tripiles are tripods with welded steel cylinders, and on the top of those fit on the monopiles that you would have seen in the other slide. So at any rate, we're talking a lot of steel in the foundations. And on the electrical side, there's 2 primary items that make up the electrical infrastructure. One is submarine cable, and the other is the components associated with an offshore substation. So if you're in the transformer or converter or controls business, again, an opportunity. So the point here is that offshore wind is coming to America. If you're a manufacturer with scale that's located near a coast or near a shore of the Great Lakes, you have an interest in learning how you can become involved, we can help. If you're an economic development professional that wants to be sure your coastal region takes full advantage of the attraction and supply chain opportunities, we can help you there too. We're busy working with the U.S. Department of Energy, project developers, and community leaders to develop an active and competitive U.S. offshore supply chain, and it's coming soon. Thank you very much. Okay. And next I'd like to introduce Dave Buley from Northern Power. Dave, I've known Dave for a number of years. Northern Power, in some ways, is the most American of all wind turbine manufacturers. And Dave worked very hard to drive supply chain development, and he'll be telling you about some of his successes and the challenges they face.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, Northern, let me just, to put my comments in perspective, let me take a minute, just a slide or so, quick slides, to talk about Northern Power System, just so you can frame the comments I'm going to make. We're America's oldest continuous operating wind turbine company since the 1970s. We're the leading, it says mid-size, but it's really distributed wind, community wind, turbine OEM. We have a fleet of 225 machines flying around the world with a total flight time of over 2.5 million run hours, and we'll be crossing 3 million before the end of the year. We're a fully integrated OEM company that designs, manufactures, sells, and services wind turbines. Our primary offices are in Vermont. We also have offices in sales offices and design offices in Massachusetts, Michigan, Switzerland, UK, and Italy. Northern Power overall, we are fully committed to developing domestic sources for components, and I put in whenever possible. And that's what I'm going to spend a lot of my time talking about today, is what I need out of the supply chain. So you're hearing it from the head of the supply chain group at Northern Power, what I'm looking for, where I can see advantages and challenges for U.S. suppliers trying to compete on an international stage, and a few recommendations from my 25 years of manufacturing industry experience. Let's go to the next slide. As I said, 34 years. We're a founding member of AWEA, and we're a leading Department of Energy NREL partner for next generation wind turbine technology development. Our sole technology is permanent magnet direct drive. We feel that is the technology that will take wind turbines into the future. And unfortunately, for Ed's presentation, the reason we feel that is because it needs very little massive maintenance in years after warranty, and the total cost of ownership over 20 years is significantly lower than traditional gearbox-driven turbines. We have turbines. We have a fleet of turbines that are flying on the north coast of Alaska. We put up and successfully put up a 1.5 megawatt turbine in Antarctica. And so we have turbines that operate in very extreme conditions around the world. And so we take our reliability of our components very, very seriously and very carefully. And we have very high availability rates, over 98%, which is considered good for utility. It's considered exceptional for distributed wind, where you don't have a maintenance crew on site. Linda, next. Just keep hitting a few times. You'll see more stuff come up. Supplier selection criteria. I use something called QDCC, and then you'll see an extra D, quality, delivery, cost, and cash flow. These are what I evaluate my worldwide supply chain on. Quality, parts to print every time, no question. Ensure the CTQs are right and not overspecified. It's easy for engineers to go in and just tighten tolerances down more than necessary. I see this in recently bearing raceways for my main shaft, and the concentricity requirements were overdone, causing us to do an extra high-cost operation, which it turned out we didn't need. Delivery, meet delivery promises every time. Reasonable or better lead times based on what my customer needs. I'm only responding to my customer. Our customer base has shifted. It used to be that you'd put in an order and they'd put the order in and say, we're going to go out and get permits and we'll be installing that turbine in 6 months and you can count on it. Well, permits turn out to be a very volatile part of a process in putting in wind turbines. And the customer base, our customer base, has shifted. Now they don't order the turbine until after they have the permits in their hand. And of course, once they have the permits in their hand, they want it installed yesterday. So we don't have the lead times anymore. We don't have concrete lead times the way we used to. And the supply base has need to respond to that. World-class landed cost and open book transparent costing. My best suppliers are I'm a manufacturing guy. I've been building things since I worked in my dad's facility when I was 6 years old. The best suppliers I have are ones that we open up the cost book, understand what it is. I'm not going to try to drive my profit out, the profit out. I'm going to try to drive cost out. I'm going to try to work with the suppliers on how to take cost out. One of the products I buy right now, I have costing models set up. We have driven the cost down 40% over 3 years. We've driven, his profit margin has stayed the same dollar. In fact, his profit percentage is up. I haven't taken one profit dollar away from him. we've dropped dollar for dollar on cost basis. His margins, I'm the most profitable piece of business he has on a margin basis, a margin percentage basis. And he's very happy to have me as a customer, but my cost has gone down significantly during that time. Then small flexible lot sizes, this is really key. As things, we're having to become, our demand stream is much higher volatility than it ever used to be. That means I need the ability to respond quickly and in small lot sizes. I have a customer, a supplier in the Midwest that I absolutely love. He's going to larger lot sizes. I need smaller. He probably won't be a supplier for me within a year. He's successful in what he's doing with his business. More power to him. It's not what I need. It's not what a lot of the wind OEMs need. And then reasonable terms. I'm not looking for excessive terms. I'm also not looking for cash on delivery. I also added D here, and this is an area that U.S. suppliers are better poised to take advantage of than non-U.S. suppliers, and that's D. This D stands for development. Work with me. Help me create increased value for my company and my customers. I have a supplier for towers who has now come to us with a proposed solution for a deliver on truck foundation that we can just put in place. It comes and it's kind of an assembly set, and it takes the traditional foundation away for our turbines. Haven't gone in that direction, but it's innovative. It's something we're looking at. And then let's talk about what we can do differently. How do we take that next level of cost out? To do that, you have to understand my requirements and my customers' requirements, and we can be very creative. I've got one supplier in Wisconsin who, when I worked on one of our safety systems, came in and said, well, you're solving it with this kind of logic and this kind of a power system. What about this system? We're used to it. We haven't applied it to this. It's taken us about 6 months of development, but within 6 months, that will be my primary safety system in this area. And that customer came to us with the idea after working with us on something else and said, we want to go after that with you. We think we can add value to your business. Linda, next. Sorry, keep hitting. I put a couple of these were originally designed for an in-person presentation. My apologies to the audience. Domestic supply chain advantages. You're talking about the U.S. versus China. There are two main areas that I can see U.S. suppliers have the capability to have an advantage over your international counterparts, but you have to take these areas and work them into adding value to my business, which is, take advantage of the fact you're closer. What can you do because you're closer? Pre-shipment verification in terms of quality. Delivery, again, I'm going down QD, CCD. Transport time, total order to delivery time. There's a major one that people can excel at, but don't. They say, well, my lead times are equal, even though there's a 6-week ocean coming over from Asia. Well, you should be much faster. Obviously, transport costs can be lower. Ordering costs should be substantially lower without the language barriers. Cash flow, good terms. Help me take inventory out of the pipeline. Help me figure out between us. I'm not asking you to hold inventory. I'm asking to say, how do we take inventory out of the total pipeline and become leaner, not as an individual business, but as a supply chain? That way we free up cash along the whole way. I'll be as creative as people coming to me. And then development, you're close. Let's get together, let's work on value analysis, value engineering opportunities. Let's sit down together at a product and say, how do we redesign this? Take advantage of the fact that I don't have to go 7,000 miles to China, that a lot of you are 150, 200 miles away, maybe 500 miles away. I've got one company here in Vermont, happens to be an hour and a half down the road. I was showing this to Ed and Jacques this morning. came to us, wanted to take over doing wiring kits for us. We now have a 48-hour lean supply wiring kit set up with them that's auto-replenishing. We've taken lots of value waste out. There's almost no inventory held in the system, and it's working perfectly. But they came to us with the idea. But they couldn't have done it had they not been able to come into our facility and work with us. Next. So here's the other area, and this, it may seem trivial, but I'm going to emphasize this. You speak English. Take advantage of it. I mean, the difficulties of communicating to Asia, not so much Europe, but especially Asia, are significant. Take advantage of that. Figure out how to turn that into value. How do you take process development and verification and put those systems in that work together seamlessly between our companies? How do we take advantage of warranty work and quick turnarounds if there's a problem? I don't want there ever to be a problem, but if there is a problem, make sure it's solved quickly. Logistics, cost, supplier to customer development is very expensive when there's a language barrier. It's not as expensive when there isn't. Development, again, VAVE, value add. The language here, I mean, it takes a lot longer to do anything when I'm dealing non-native English speakers. But to do that, take advantage of the distance and the language and figure out how together we can make more money. If we take cost out together, then we get to share the benefit. Okay, next. So U.S. domestic suppliers should have an advantage, but, and this is what Ed called my tough love speech when I was with him in Cleveland 2 years ago. I walk through a lot of U.S. suppliers around the world, and this is, again, tough love, but I see people that confuse being busy with being productive. Productive is taking cost out. Busy is everybody doing something. Standard costs. A lot of suppliers and a lot of U.S. industry is embraced on various forms of lean processing, whether it's JIT, TPS, Lean Six Sigma. But what I have found is they've embraced, even if they've embraced it and excelled at it on the manufacturing floor, their cost accounting systems are still stuck in the 1950s and 60s, and it doesn't reflect the costs that are coming out off the factory floor, the way they're represented in your accounting, aren't reflecting the true leanness on your manufacturing floor. And since those accounting systems usually drive pricing decisions, the product ends up getting overpriced and you're losing opportunity. So when you really look at activity-based costing as opposed to standard costing, and then attack those activities. How do you take more of those activities out? Use that as a way to figure out how to extract more cost. Focus on labor cost and labor content. I mean, I've got a lot of people say, how do I ever compete with $20 or $25 an hour labor in China? Net total factory cost. It's 1/4 of what it is in the U.S. It's true, number one, it's going up at 20% per year. But the companies that I use in the U.S. have succeeded in focusing on labor content rather than labor dollar per hour rate. They have figured out how to use automation and intelligence to take the labor content out. If the labor content goes away, when you look at the total cost of the product, the labor rate doesn't make that much of a difference in the end. I've got the companies I've seen, it's part of lean, but it doesn't happen as often as it should. That when you lean out a machining center and got it running and got it humming, you got to take the body away from in front of it and take the hours away. I know I'm preaching to the choir for a lot of folks, but I walk into a lot of companies where they haven't taken that critical last step. And then velocity. And this is a quote I just happen to like. Just as a rolling stone gathers, I'm sorry, that's a misprint. A rolling stone gathers no moss, A moving part gathers no cost. Keep it moving. If stuff is moving through a factory quick, you just can't put that much cost into it. The longer it sits on your factory floor, the more labor, the more cost is going to be attached to it. So I never picked that up. That was a misprint from last time. Next slide, please. So actions I recommend: competitive costing. Know your total landed cost to my dock versus the competition. That's what I evaluate on you. I don't evaluate you on your price. I evaluate you on your total landed cost to my dock door. Open books. Let's talk about those cost drivers. Let's figure out if a particular tolerance is causing an issue. Let's talk about that tolerance. What can we do? I want to take cost out more than you do. Trust me. Create value. Help lower my final product cost. I've got a customer that helped me figure out how to change a communication system, dropped $4,000 a turbine from my customer's cost. That the customer took a piece of it, we took a piece of it, and the supplier took a piece of it. A win for everybody. World-class cost. High productivity, Lean Six Sigma JIT. For those of you who aren't familiar with it, there is a body of work called Factory Physics that comes out of Northwestern University in Chicago from Professors Hopp and Spearman. I can't tell you, take your lead manufacturing engineer, buy him the textbook, have him read it and adopt it. And then finally, be profitable. I want my suppliers to be profitable, reasonably profitable, not excessively, not minorly, but reasonably profitable. Because I want my business to be important to you. I want to know that you're making enough money so that you're not going to, if the business picks up, you're not going to dismiss me or push my orders out. I want you to be profitable, reasonably so. Because you're going to be a stronger supplier, you're not going to cut corners, you're going to give me the quality that I need, and you're going to give me the products that my customer needs. So be profitable, and then finally, be disruptive. Be that supplier that says, I just helped you solve that problem over here, but let me take what I just learned from that and apply it over this other area of your product. And he helped me reduce the cost of that system by 25%. Be with something that we never would have thought of. He came in and brought a disruptive technology to that safety system, and it's working. So figure out how to be creative. Don't be afraid to say, I've got to do it the same way it's being done now. Focus on the end goal and what it takes. So I think that's it.
Okay, now I am going to also find John here in the list and open up and go ahead and use the chat feature. You'll find it at the top of probably your screen. Menu bar will drop down and pull up chat, and you can type in your questions there. John, you are also now unmuted, and just kind of waiting. Any questions from the audience for our speakers? Or even of the speakers of each other, since you're unmuted now, Ed and maybe Jack, now that you got to see their place up there in Vermont.
Jacques here, I guess I could ask David a question that we spoke about earlier today. He's noticed an increase in interest from overseas for some of the turbines. Maybe I could ask David to chat about that.
You're asking the supply chain guy to talk about the marketing side of the business, but I'll try to do my best. We are seeing we are a U.S. manufacturer that is successfully exporting to Europe into the heart of wind turbine industry. We actually find that a really good story, and I think it's an unusual story, but we can compete head-to-head into Europe. So we are seeing a lot of our volume and a lot of increase in the interest in our product coming from the European region, Italy, UK, other countries throughout Europe. One of the things that it means is the made, you know, when I look at where the products are sourced from, if I'm in the U.S. and can say it's a U.S. content turbine, or it's a majority U.S. content turbine, and I'm in the U.S., that means a little bit to some of my customers. Frankly, not as many as I'd like, but some of my customers. However, when I'm selling into Italy or the UK, the fact that it's a U.S.-made product, it's not buying me anything in terms of increased sale price, so therefore it doesn't buy me any allowance in terms of my cost base. They're looking for the lowest total installed cost they can get, whether it comes from the U.S., whether it comes from China, whether it comes from the moon. They want the lowest total installed cost they can get. And so made in the USA label will mean some things to a few customers in the U.S., but not many. And doesn't mean anything when I try to export product elsewhere in the world.
Thank you.
Got a question here. Is there any momentum building in the domestic supply chain to prepare for offshore wind, or is it too early right now?
Offshore, yeah, offshore wind right now for the demonstration projects are in the engineering phases. For Cape Wind, there are orders being let, and the ports are being built right now. So we are, for Cape Wind, we are months away. For the demonstration projects, we are quarters away. But mark my words, there's big steel going into those foundations that I described, and the thing is, they need to be made here. They don't transport well at all. There's another industry, shipbuilding, where there's special vessels need to be constructed. There is a heck of an industry in Europe, but we have a law in the books that prevents European vessels from serving American wind farms. So the U.S. is going to need to adapt or create new vessels. Way beyond that, you've got turbines, but on the immediate, in quarters away, we're going to see. My prediction is an industry on multiple coasts, and there'll be things to take pictures of and things to go look at.
Thank you. And I think we are maybe at the end of our questions for today. As I scroll back here, just as a reminder, we will be doing natural gas the end of June. We have a great speaker lineup. Oh, not one last question here. The other piece was, let's see, the presentation to the presentation screen. The presentations will be available. I will send a PDF of that out. We have another question here. We are a small local union in Pittsburgh and are interested in the training and wind turbine awareness end of things, mainly in having the equipment for classroom instruction. Does anyone have any information on that?
Linda will have to dig that up, but don't have that at our fingers.
Yeah, sure. Carl, we will get back with you on that.
Yeah, and sort of from AWEA's end, we have a whole department here focused on education and training. So if they want to shoot an email or try to contact someone here at AWEA, they can put them in touch with the person who runs that department and get them some more information.
Sure. And yeah, so natural gas next month, and thecemc.com. Check under latest news for the webinar recording. And thanks everybody for your participation.
Thank you.